What up, movie lovers? Welcome back to Apocalypse Movies, and we're here today to review the new movie 10 Cloverfield Lane. For those of you who don't know, this is kind of a movie set in the same universe as, I believe it came out in 2008, the movie Cloverfield, produced by JJ Abrams, directed by Matt Reeves, who actually directed Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, and it was actually written by Drew Goddard, the original film. This film, I forget who's directed 10 Cloverfield Lane.
Dan Trachtenberg.
Dan Trachtenberg? Has he directed anything
I
else
don't
that
think
you
so.
know of?
I don't think so.
Oh, I heard he's like a prodigy to JJ Abrams.
Yeah, I
like
think
he's
so.
kind of JJ Abrams' dude. Oh, I heard about him. He directed some type of short film, and this is kind of his first big film.
That would make sense.
So, yeah, so jumping right into it. So, we're going to talk about our general impressions of the film, our positives, our negatives, maybe something that really stood out to us, and then give our recommendations and our score out of 10. So, forewarning, there's going to be some spoilers in this review. So, if you have not seen the film, I suggest saving this video and watching it later after you've seen the film. So, let's jump right into it. So, for those of you who don't know, you might be confused. You might think it's a sequel. It's technically not a sequel to Cloverfield. It's just, I guess you can compare it to the Marvel Cinematic Universe where, the Incredible Hulk was not a sequel to Iron Man, but it's set within the same world. Mm-hmm. So, Jake, I want to ask you, what were your general impressions of 10 Cloverfield Lane?
I'll be honest, when it first started, I was a bit iffy on it because, obviously with it only being really announced 2 months ago, we didn't know really anything going into it. We saw trailers, it piqued our interest, that kind of stuff, but I wasn't into the whole doomsday thing in the very beginning.
Yeah.
It kind of caught me off guard. I was like, oh, another one of these things. And then as the movie got on, I started to really like what was going on. Psychological thriller, we talked about it last night. I mean, very, very interesting stuff going on and dynamics between the three characters. I ended up enjoying it. It does take a wild turn at the end.
Yeah.
The last 10 minutes
least.
or so, yeah. But it was very interesting. It was something very different. We kind of compared it to how we reacted to The Witch a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Just kind of out of the box film.
Yeah, definitely.
Very much of a, I can't find the word, but a creative movie that someone takes a chance on,
Oh, okay.
And,
yeah.
But it's something worth seeing, I would say. It's because the character dynamics are very interesting. And like you said, don't go in thinking it's a sequel to Cloverfield because it's not.
Exactly.
And that's what people are going to get confused by because I was actually a fan of the original, a big fan of it. And I knew it wasn't a direct sequel, but I still was looking for some kind of connection. But overall, I enjoyed it. So
yeah, so for me, I did enjoy the film. I enjoyed 10 Cloverfield Lane. But I couldn't help but want some type of direct connection from the original Cloverfield movie. If you weren't going to have one, then just don't, I don't know, because the story in this movie is actually really great. And the psychological thriller aspect of it is amazing. And those psychological thrillers are one of my favorite genres of film. So I feel like if I would have watched this movie and not known what it was called and just jumped right into it, I would have freaking loved it.
Well, that's how you watch the trailer.
Exactly.
The trailer popped up on YouTube. You didn't know what it was.
That. You remembered that. Yeah, exactly. So, I was watching a video on YouTube when I saw the trailer for the first time, and the trailer just started. I had no idea what it was, and I was like, what the hell is this? This looks so compelling. And then it's like Cloverfield Lane. So for me, and this is not really fair to the movie, but it ultimately is its own fault because I was expecting some type of direct connection to the original Cloverfield. And other than the fact that, there's been a fallout from some type of apocalyptic attack on Earth or on this area of the Earth, other than that, there's no really connections. Even, spoilers, even some of the type of alien creatures that we see at the end of the film are not anything, they're not the same creatures that are in Cloverfield. So I thought maybe, even if those creatures would have been those same creatures from Cloverfield, then I would have been like, okay, then it's cool, it's a direct connection, but there was really no direct connection. But don't get me wrong, this film is intense. It really had me on the edge of my seat. Like I said, if I didn't know what it was called and I was just watching it, I would have been like, holy crap, this is one of the best movies I've seen all year. That's not saying much. There hasn't been that many great films this year, but just saying, like, I was very invested in John Goodman's character, and I don't know the other two actors' names, but
Mary Elizabeth Winstead and John Gallagher Jr.
yeah, that just the dynamic between them three and what was going on, and you're trying to figure out what John Goodman's character is up to, and I heard a promotion for the movie on my way here, actually, and it kind of made me think about it and like the movie more because, you know, it had like a couple lines of dialogue of John Goodman's characters, and it was like, from producer JJ Abrams, monsters come in all different forms.
Yeah, it's the headline on the poster.
So that, I didn't know that until I just heard that on the way here. So that makes sense because, you know, in the first movie, in the Cloverfield movie, there's literally a monster. But in this movie, John Goodman's character is the monster.
Yes.
So as far as from a psychological thriller aspect and just being a movie on its own, I actually really liked it. But connecting it to the Cloverfield film, which maybe not be fair on my part, but they named it 10 Cloverfield Lane, I was disappointed in that aspect of the film. So we kind of touched on some of them, but let's talk about exactly what you enjoyed about the film, Jake.
I think, you know, we kind of touched on it, but you have to go with the performances. John Goodman, I mean, he's in things here and there. He was in Trumbo this last year. He had the small part.
That's right.
He was in Argo a few years ago. He's in things here and there.
You know what I liked him in was Flight.
Oh, I forgot he was in that.
He was really good in Flight.
I forgot about that, yeah. So he's had a bunch of smaller roles here and there. Yeah. But he really took over the screen.
Oh, this is his movie.
Yeah, and it kind of,
performance-wise,
reassures that why this dude is so coveted in the acting business and has been for such a long time. He not only plays this, really creepy, hostile kind of captor, but he's also very sensitive and like loving, and he plays very different personalities, and that's hard to do for an actor in a short amount of time. And you see a lot of different sides from him, and it's really interesting to see. And like you said, it kept you on the edge of your seat the entire time. Obviously, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, who was pretty much, I would say she's the lead of the film.
Well, she technically, she's the protagonist.
So I thought she did a phenomenal job. She did really good countering John Goodman.
I'm not familiar with her at all.
She's John McClane's daughter in Die Hard, Live Free or Die Hard.
Oh, really?
She's in that. She's in a few other small roles here and there. But she was really, really good, and
she's hot.
Yeah, she's very good looking. Yes, and but yeah, she was great. I thought John Gallagher Jr., who played the third, but
I'm not familiar with him either.
Neither am I. It's the first time I've seen him.
Oh, okay.
In his role, he was great. I mean, he was funny. He kind of had this quirky personality about him. He was like high on life, and he worked for John Goodman and all that kind of stuff. And then obviously the twist came. And, and spoilers, we're gonna talk about spoilers, but I did not see that coming. I thought I saw him dying,
something coming,
but I didn't see that way he died. Yeah. The performances all around were great, and it's hard to do that when there's only 3 actors in a film and you follow it the entire time. A second thing would obviously be the intensity of the film. It really did keep you engaged the entire time. It was very interesting. You never knew what was going to happen. We thought that she was taken hostage by John Goodman, and then we find out later that maybe it wasn't him, and then we're like, oh, maybe this is different, and then we find out later that it's actually the way we thought. So much
back and forth.
Yeah, dude. So it did keep you engaged a lot, and it was a lot of fun and thrilling to watch. I love the writing and the dialogue between all the characters. I thought it was great. The pace was fantastic. The twist at the end was way out of the box wild, but I actually liked it. I thought it was just crazy enough to it wasn't crazy.
What do you mean by the twist? When she gets
the 10
out?
minutes, yeah.
Okay.
Last 10 minutes of film. I didn't think it was crazy enough to where it'd be like, oh, this is stupid. It still kept you engaged. Like, you still wanted to watch it, which is interesting to me. And yeah, it was a little weird for sure, and it kind of did make me take a step back, but I was still interested in see what would happen.
Yeah, definitely.
But those are definitely the main positives for me.
Yeah, for me, just the tone of the film and the creepiness of it, and obviously John Goodman's performance. He's incredible in this movie.
Yeah.
he's such an underrated actor. When you talk about great performers, he doesn't get mentioned a lot, but he should be because he's freaking great. And he's mostly a character actor, you know? He's mostly a supporting character in most movies. So I want to see him get some more work, especially after and we just heard a casting about him.
Yeah, he's
earlier,
in
right?
God, I forgot
You just
what
said
it
it.
is.
Well, anyways, yeah, all three of the main leads were great. Just the creepy tone was incredible, and like I've been saying, I love psychological thrillers. I love a movie that keeps me on the edge of my seat and keeps me guessing, not knowing what the character's intentions are, and it had you going back and forth with John Goodman's character because at first you understand. Look, you think he's just a sane guy who's a little bit paranoid and had this bunker built, you know, in case something like this happened. And you're like, okay, it makes sense that he has them locked up because he doesn't want them to try to break out and, you know, risk him being infected. That makes sense. But then he starts to get a little weird and a little pushy, and you're like, okay, maybe he is a weirdo. But then finally, and spoilers, she tries to break out. And then she sees a woman out there who's infected and, you know, on the verge of dying. And she's like, oh, shit, he is right. So then we're back on his side. Like, okay, he's protecting them. Yeah. Everything's all good. You know, it's them three against what's outside in the world. And then circumstances lead to other things. And you find out, wait a minute, he is a freaking weirdo. At first, I thought it was maybe a sexual thing, but it's not. We find out, you know, he misses his daughter, and we find out he maybe abducted another young girl in the past that had gone missing in that town, and you know, the other two characters find some clues that might lead to that. And then just so that whole thing inside the bunker was incredible. If that was the movie and it had a different ending, it might have been like, I probably would have ended up giving it like a 9.5 out of 10. The first 3/4 of the film, to me, is a 9.5 out of 10. So I just enjoyed everything about it. These characters were not one note. They had a backstories, and they took time to develop the characters and talk about, you know, the younger dude. He was talking about how he wanted to go into track, and he decided to stay behind, and he was afraid to leave his hometown. And then
there was a payoff at the end.
Exactly, there was a payoff to it, and you know, she talks about some of the things that she went through in her past, and we learn about her even in the very beginning of the film, how she's leaving her fiance and stuff like that. So there's a lot of great character stuff going on. It's very character and story driven for 3/4 of the film. Maybe even 4/5 of the film, I would say, because
it's only about 10 minutes. Yeah.
So, and separating. So the ending is one of my problems with the movie. But if you separate the ending from the rest of the film, it was actually kind of cool to watch. Like the action and see, that's what I would expect from a Cloverfield connected movie. Mm-hmm. But the fact that they did such a great job building up all this momentum and then had that at the end, you know, it kind of took away from how much I enjoyed the movie. But yeah, I went on and on about what I enjoyed, so let's jump right into it. What are the negatives, Jake? Let's start with you. I mean, what about 10 Cloverfield Lane did you not like or thought could have been done better?
Well, I kind of talked about it in the beginning, but the whole Doomsday thing kind of threw me off a little bit. I got used to it as the movie went on, but it still, I guess I just didn't want that to happen because I wasn't expecting it to happen. I would have rather seen something else happen. And so that was definitely something that threw me off a little bit. And obviously the ending, I said I enjoyed it, but there was still a part of me that would have rather seen a different ending.
Yeah.
Because we talked, like we had mentioned last night, but it felt like two different movies.
Exactly.
It was
like I said, if you separate them, they're both enjoyable.
Yeah. So
but together they don't work.
It does. It gives a flaw to the film just because it's so different. It's so out there. So those are definitely two of them. I mean, other than that, it's hard to think of a real negative just because I was so engaged from the first, like after the first 15 minutes through until those last 10 minutes.
Exactly.
Like that first, like that hour, 20 minutes, I was so engaged in the film. So other than those two things, I really can't find the negative.
Yeah, I agree. It started off a little slow and it started off a little bit like cliche horror movie, you know, like drama between a couple or something. And I'm like, okay, this is probably just a little bit of setup, get to know her character. But then at 15 minutes into the movie, I was hooked. But then and everything from that point on till the last 10 minutes was phenomenal. And then that, you know, she breaks out of the bunker. She finally gets out. And it just felt like a completely different film. It felt like a sequel to Cloverfield.
It did. Yeah,
which
it did.
The rest of the movie was not.
Yeah.
And I get it. I get what they're doing. I heard about some JJ Abrams interviews, and he even said it's not a direct sequel to Cloverfield. It's set within the same world. You know, repercussions from what happened in the first movie affect what's going on in this movie. But other than that, it's no story or characters don't directly translate into this film. So that last 10 minutes felt like it went with the original Cloverfield movie, and it just totally it kind of ruined the movie for me. It wasn't bad on its own, but connecting to the first half of the movie it took me out of it, honestly. Because I was in my own imagination for the first half, and I forgot where I was. I was just trapped in this story, and then all of a sudden the crazy stuff starts happening, and I'm like, wait a minute, this movie took a left turn, and I don't know if it can win me back. And it didn't necessarily win me back near the end, but still, as much as I didn't like that ending, it does not take away how great the first 4/5 are. So yeah, let's move on to something that's called the WTF moment, something crazy that stood out to us. Some movies we have to search and reach for a WTF moment, but this movie definitely has a lot of them.
Yeah,
there's some crazy stuff in
definitely.
here. Let's go ahead and start with you, Jake.
I think one of them is when we find out, you know, he goes to him, is like, hey, we need to grab this barrel, bring it into the room. We find out what's in the barrel, and then the whole scene goes down. I was expecting spoilers, and we're going to talk spoilers in the movie, but
Definitely.
I was expecting something to happen where he would still be alive and him throw him in the barrel.
That's what I thought.
Like, I thought it was going to be that brutal.
I thought he was going to grab his face and dip his face in the barrel and hold his head in the barrel. That's what I thought
something really harsh was going to happen.
For those of you, I mean, maybe I'm hoping you've seen the movie, but there's a barrel. I forget what the acid's called. But it's this acid that disintegrates human flesh all the way to the bone, basically.
Yeah, so I mean, the gunshot was still shocking.
Yeah, that's definitely a
because it kind of just ended.
Yeah,
but I was definitely expecting something like that to happen.
Yeah.
I was not expecting her to kick over the barrel towards him.
I loved that.
Yeah, so did I, because it happened.
I love brutal stuff like that in my movies, dude.
And I love that he kind of came back in like this zombie-looking creature and whatnot. But
see, that was all so great.
Yeah, but obviously I think the big WTF moment is the last 10 minutes, man, when she breaks out. Yeah. You see the alien ship, and then we find out that the alien ship is actually the one behind the toxin gas that's killing everyone. And so that would definitely be... Did you notice
this? I talked to Gio about this. He doesn't notice it. So in the very beginning, when she's packing up, she grabs that bottle of alcohol. That's the same bottle of alcohol that she used to kill. Yeah. So if she wouldn't have grabbed that bottle of alcohol, it wouldn't have been there.
Yep.
And if you notice, when he gives her box of stuff, he says, hey, I grabbed some stuff from your car, but I didn't grab the booze, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, the payoff.
Yeah, I love those payoffs.
Yeah, it's a payoff. Yeah. But I think the big WTF moment for me is definitely the ending, because it was just a wild turn.
Yeah, definitely him killing the other guy is a huge... The way he killed him. We knew something was coming.
Yeah, we kind of expected him to be gone.
Gunshot, boom. That was out of nowhere. And then, definitely her kicking the acid, because I was not expecting that. Because he was... I forget what the dialogue was, but it was so badass, too. And he was like... I think it was along the line of something like this. He was like, so what are you going to do? And she was like, this, and kicks the barrel. And, this acid, as soon as it hits your feet, you're going to fall, because it's going to burn through your shoes and hit your feet. So he falls face flat into it. That's definitely a WTF moment. But I'm going to say the moment that so this is my WTF moment. The moment that so earlier in the film, John Goodman's character shows her a picture of a girl. And he says that that's his daughter. And then later on, she shows the same picture to the other guy. He's like, wait a minute, that's not his daughter. That's a girl that I went to school with that went missing a few years back. Yeah. And she's like, what? And that whole thing, that's the moment you find out that he really is a creep. So that, to me, that was a huge reveal. That was a big, huge WTF moment. And it increased my enjoyment of the movie. So I really like that moment. So let's move on to would you recommend it? This is the segment where we talk about would we recommend it to general audiences or just a specific niche audience. So Jake, let me ask you, who would you recommend this movie to?
I think I would recommend it to the older audiences.
Definitely, yeah.
Older high school and above. It's definitely specific for that group. Psychological thriller. There's some stuff that goes on, that definitely shouldn't be seen for little kids, obviously.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think it's PG-13 too, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't just recommend it to this specific group. I would recommend it to everybody that age because I think it's very enjoyable for everybody. It's something that everybody should see. Small time movie, something that hooks a lot of people. And we kind of saw that by the Rotten Tomatoes score. We were surprised by how
it's like
high
at
it was.
92% right now.
Yeah, so a lot of people are enjoying it.
Yeah.
And it's doing well at the box office so far. So I would definitely recommend it to that, 16, 18 and above.
I totally agree with you. I mean, anywhere between, age 16 to like age 50, I think you would really enjoy this movie because it kind of feels like it could possibly be rated R.
Yeah.
It's not. They do a really good job of having violence and blood and brutality without going too far to make it rated R.
Well, I think if you throw 2 F words in there, it's rated R.
Oh, yeah, and she only had 1.
Yeah.
So, I think maybe a little bit too much for 12, 13-year-olds, but maybe 15 and above. And maybe, I don't think older audiences would like it, but up into like older 50s maybe. But yeah, this movie is definitely enjoyable. I mean, for me, I'm looking at this film from a critical standpoint, so that ending really bothered me. But I feel like general audience members, not to take away anything from them, but I feel like that's kind of a payoff for the general audience members that sat through the slow stuff the whole time.
Yeah.
They finally get that big action stuff they were expecting from a Cloverfield sequel. So I think general audience members will actually like it more than I did.
Interesting.
Because of that.
Never thought about
so
that.
The thing that I had a problem with, I think will help with general audience members. So I definitely recommend the film. So let's move on to our last segment, giving it a score out of 10. I know we were both struggling with this. I'm still unsure, but I'm going to decide on something. Jake, let's go with you first.
You had mentioned, it's about 9.5 through the entire film, and I would completely agree with you. Those 2 flaws for me, they impacted the film huge, and so it drops it. I struggle with this, but I'm gonna stick with an 8.
Yeah.
I was 7.5, 8, somewhere around there, but I'm gonna go with an 8 just because that hour and 20 minutes in the middle is so good.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So an 8 out of 10.
Like you said, man, and repeating what I said, if this movie was not Cloverfield connected and it just had a different ending, I probably would have ended up giving it a 9.5 out of 10. That's how much I enjoyed the first 4/5 of the film. But I cannot forgive how much the ending just was such a curveball and threw me out of the movie. I cannot forgive it. So for that sake, I'm bringing it down to a 7.5 out of 10, which is not a bad score.
No, not at all.
Please, listeners, just because even a 7 is a good score. Once you get below 7, maybe the movie had some real problems, but 7.5 is a solid film for me. That means I enjoyed it 75% of the movie. Like I definitely do recommend this film. So you got an 8.5 from Jake, right?
Yep. No, 8 o'clock. 8. Sorry.
I apologize. An 8 from Jake, a 7.5, around the same ballpark. We both actually really enjoyed it, but had the same flaws. So that's going to do it for our 10 Cloverfield Lane review. Please let us know in the comment section, did you like this movie? What did you like? What didn't you like? Do you agree with some of our points? Do you disagree? Let us know in the comment section. I want to thank Jake Berlin for joining me today, man. Let them know where they can find you online.
Twitter, Instagram at Qui-Gon Jake with 2 N's, and
Yes,
pocketflixmovies.com every day.
And you can find me, Jacob Bartley, on Twitter at @JacobBartley_ on this Apocalypse Movies YouTube channel. Hit subscribe, hit that like button, share, please. We really appreciate it. And till next time from Apocalypse Movies, we'll see you.